Hello and welcome to Blit Paint. When you open up Blit Paint, you'll see these 4 buttons: 0, light, medium and high. 0 means no undos, light means just a few, medium is kind of medium, and high is quite a lot. Now this one will take about 15 seconds to load, maybe longer depending on your machine. This one is fairly quick, but you don't get a lot of undos. This one very limited in case you want to kind of test yourself, and this one 0. Right, so I'm going to go for 0 because it loads quickly, and for the purpose of this demo I don't really need undos because I know all the shortcut keys. If you hold down Z while you paint, you can erase. If you hold down L and choose a couple of colours, you can paint lock pixels. If you hold down F, you can paint in additive mode. Okay, backspace clears absolutely everything. These are your brushes. Now this little light here is modes, right? You press D or use your mouse wheel and you can change these modes. Now the first mode only uses this color to tint the brushes, right? So I can choose red and we'll tint them red, orange, tint them orange. Now if I press D on or use the mouse wheel, I can switch between these two colors and it will tone them in variation. So this one and this one. Okay, but that's been multiplied into this base green color, which if you paint in white you see the true color. So I could do dark blue and this and you'll see that it tints it that way. Let's go for really blue colors and so on. So backspace is going to clear that. This brush is a nice one for making Bob Ross style pine trees, I find. Is really kind of useful, right? And you can do less pressure as you go up. Let's just make a nice backdrop so we can see exactly what's happening there. So you choose 2 colors and right click any of these. That's a bit bright, isn't it? That's a bit better, right? And we're in this layer here, so I'm going to choose a couple of greens, dark green, light green, and just start kind of dotting in a little bit of a tree. You can scale down as you go using the bracket keys. Okay, now it's not got a lot of rotational variation, so I'm going to press E and just rotate that a little bit, and then R, rotate it the other way. Right, I'm going to make it a little bit smaller, and it's hard to see it here because of the background, but let's just see. If I hold down X and move left and right, I can see the brush kind of get smaller. Right, so I can use that to just do the tops a bit and the odd bit in the front. Let's just choose a different color. Hold down X and move to the right. Now that's the same as using X scale here. So there's a famous Bob Ross tree, right? Now I can go the layer below this, and you see I've already made these kind of trunks, and you see the way it's switching through the various images that are stored on this brush. So these brushes are different from Photoshop. They don't just contain one image and maybe some sort of mixed texture. They actually contain multiple images that you can tint based in 2 tones. Like if I press D, this mode, this higher light here, it basically tints white tones this color and black tones this color, and anything in between would be a mix. So if I go for, let's see, those black bits, I'll make them like dark brown. So if I click just here, you can see I've made a nice kind of trunk. Okay, I can scale it down and rotate it a bit. I'm just going to increase the spacing because it is dotting a few of them down at a time, and that's because of the mode that it's on, and it's not in stamp mode. Stamp mode only places 1 down, so if I do Shift S, now this is going to be a button later, but for now it's good to get used to these shortcut keys, and I can stamp some of these down. Okay, and maybe just some up here. I'm just going to make the brush a bit smaller, so I'm holding down S and moving left and right. Well, hold down S, you know, just moving left and right. Hold down A, I can change the alpha and so on. Right, so I'm going to make this a little bit darker on the inside I just want to get a nice soft brush, and I know there's one here, right? I'm just going to get black. I'm on this mode, which means it only uses this top color. I'm actually going to make it so it crosses these out or something, don't know, but I'm in this layer where the trunk is. Alright, I've got black. Now I'm just going to make the opacity quite low, and if I hold down L to lock, if I draw over here, you can see I can gradually make the trunks just a little bit darker there, just like a little bit of shadow. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mouse wheel down over this layer just to move it down, and this has freed up this one, and I want to paint some grass just at the bottom. So let's see, I've got leaves and stuff, I've got some nice grass and foliage. See, this one's just cartoony, but it's nice when you use it quite small. I'm going to do a little bit rotational range. That's going to just kind of like vary it left and right angle wise. I'm going to tint it a little bit darker. So I'm going to left click and right click to make it even darker, and I'm just going to press D so that I'm on this one, and I'm in a fresh layer so I can always delete. I just want to dot a few of these down at the bottom, right, just a little bit like that. A wee bit more rotational range would be nice. There we go, you get some of these kind of falling to one side. And there we have a tree, right? Now I can go to the background layer and do Shift C to completely clear it, and I'm going to save this as a brush. Okay, so the best way to do that right now, there's no sort of grab thing, but I'm gonna create that so that you can just sort of quick grab and turn it into a brush and save it or whatever. But what I'm going to do is just going to do Control S. I'll save this to, let's make a new folder actually. New folder. I'm going to call created, because these are going to be images that are created within Blit Paint itself. And I'm going to call it BP Pine Tree. I'll just call it 1, just in case I decide to make variations of this, and you'll see what I mean in a second. So I've saved that tree, and yeah, I could load it in and go here. I choose 1 because I only want a single image. I don't want it to be split in any way. I'm just going to add Pine Tree. You can see it's made this one as well, but I don't need that. I need the full image. And now I've got a copy of that tree. Can't paint on the background, so I'm just going to move to this top layer here. And there you go, I can dot that down. I can even put a little bit of rotational range on that. You see I get these kind of topsy-turvy trees. I'm going to do Shift C to clear that layer. Now if I press 2, I can change the offset, but this isn't ideal. So later when I'm able to grab the actual image, this will make more sense. But what I'm going to do is right click and just get rid of that completely. And I've got this brush here, right? And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to clear these layers. So backspace will clear absolutely everything. I've got this brush, right? It's not there or anything, but it's just loaded in here, right? I can still draw with it. Doesn't go away until whatever, right? I restart. But what I can do is I can press G and go into these grid modes, and you can see it's forgotten it, right? It's forgotten the brush. So just be careful with that, because it will be switching the brushes out automatically. Right, that was my own sort of boo-boo there as well, but lucky for us, we saved it. We had to save it anyway, but I'm going to press G till we get to this room, right? Or this one. Now this is the kind of like the brush creator room. It can also be used for animation. I'm just going to press H to hide the UI. I'm just going to scale this brush to a decent size. Right, I'm going to plop it in place like there. Oops, I've got rotation on, so I'm just going to clear that layer. Let's just see, I want to do Shift S so it's only a stamp, and I don't want any rotational range. Just going to plop that there. Don't know why it's plotting it like this, but there's a little bit of rotational range still on it. There we go. Right, you see if I want to make more, it basically says I can place it here, one here, and so on. Only want the same brush sort of, but what I'll do is I'll plot it down anyway. I'll do Alt X to flip it, right? I'll make it a little bit smaller so we get some sort of size variation maybe. I won't worry about tonal variation because that'll be automatic. I'll do X and make it a little bit thinner, scale it up so it's a bit taller, and it's going to add a tiny bit of rotation to that and plop that there, so we got another variation. And this one I'll make a bit taller, and this one I'll make kind of stumpy, right? So there we go, we've got 4 images. If I press K, I can turn off this onion skinning, and you can see down here the 4 images that I've created for this single brush. Now I need to save this out, so I'm just going to do Control S, and you'll see the way it's saved these images. It will save the full image, and it's also going to save this kind of sprite sheet, and it's called Sprite 4 because it's split into 4, right? So I'm just basically going to save over that. I don't need IMG or PNG because those are automatic, right? You see it basically names that underscore IMG, and it names this underscore Sprite 4, right? So all I need is this, and that should overwrite those. Now when I go to a new brush, I'll just go to this one, but I'm going to change this to 4 because we're loading in a split 4, and we've loaded in this brush. Now I can get rid of this. Now I can clear everything. Now I can get rid of this grid by pressing G, and we're back to normal. If I press 5, I can center the axis, or if I press 2, I can put the axis kind of where I want it. And now I've got this tree that I can spruce around, right? It's a little bit too dramatic there, but if I change the spacing, a tiny bit of rotational range, and I press D for this tonal range, and I choose white for the true color, and maybe a little bit of this. You'll see now I'll get the trees being tinted. It's not as obvious. Let's make that really obvious. And also let's just add in a backdrop like that. Okay, let's tint it with this yellow and this blue. And you can see I can make loads of these little trees really easily. Now I made this whole brush from scratch. It's pretty cool, right? So let's just fill that backdrop in again. Let's go for nicer tones, maybe that one and that one. Yeah, that's a bit easier in the eye. Okay, so I'm gonna just reset anything, that's fine. I'm going to draw with a little bit of opacity first, so I'll press 7, and this will just help me create a kind of backdrop. I'll move a bit higher, so there's a couple of bits for, but that's the pure background. This will be like clouds, this will be mountains, this will be something, and then this will be trees here, right? I'll go to here, and I just want to dot in some of these trees. Now you see the opacity acts a little bit different from what you'd expect, but if we basically clear that layer and press D, and we choose the 2 colors of the background and press 0, we're going to tint this tree just a little bit like that. You can barely see it. Okay, so we've tinted the tree based on the background. Now I don't want it to be that obvious, so I'll just change those a little bit more, and you can see a little bit more of the light tones are getting through, right? But I'm going to press D to get to this one, and you can see they've got a little bit of tonage there. They're a bit too sidey-widey, so I'm just going to do Shift C, and you see the opacity is low, so I'll just get rid of that as well. Okay, now to make these fade into the backdrop a bit, I'll just go to the layer above. Don't worry, I've got this brush saved and I can load it in again. Right, I've got it here, and I can load it in easily just by adding a force flit and moving the pivot where I want it. Later on that will all be automated hopefully, but let's see, I want to add, I want to make this kind of faded to the backdrop, so I'm going to go for a soft brush, this one. I'm going to choose a couple of tones again. I'll press D for this mode because it works better for grayscale type stuff, and I'll press 2, and I just want to wash over this just a little bit, especially at the ground, right? Especially the ground, just for a little kind of misty fog. Right, I can do a lighter tone and press 1, also a bit of spacing, right, and just something like that. Okay, I can delete some of this if I hold down Z. I can remove some of that as well if it's too strong. And I'm just going to choose some of these light tones and just go over just a little bit, and that just pushes them to the back. It's called atmospheric perspective. When you do that, just make them faded a bit. Okay, so I'm going to go up here in front of these. I'll go back to the tree, and everything should be the way it was. You can see it's flicking through the various images that I created. Oh, okay, that's because it's in this mode. So I press D, I'll go back to a mode that makes sense. It's going to right click and left click will act as a delete, or you can hold down Z and just paint with the left click. I'm using the mouse completely for this. You try making a painting like this just with the mouse. And I guess that's the point of this tool, is that it does these things. Right, so I'm going to paint some trees in the foreground there, a few little ones there. It's already Bob Ross style. Right, get mad rotation on these, but it does create a kind of hilly feeling, just that little bit of rotational range. And then I could really scale this up and put one in the foreground, and the foreground's going to be up here, right? And you know how Bob Ross always puts a big tree right in the foreground like that, but we can do that as well. Right, I'm just going to do Shift C to clear that layer because I didn't like that brush. Shift C, there we go, that's a better one, and that looks pretty cool. I'm going to add some snow, so check this out. So we've got our fog there, right? Let's go back to a brush that makes sense. This one, right? And I just want to add some snow here and there. Now I could just scroll that down for a bit of space here, and I'll go for a couple of lightish tones. See that one. There's more palettes, by the way. If you click on these, there's more colors. Okay, I'm going to choose these, and I'll work in a layer that's free. I'm not using any undos in this one because I don't want it to automatically bake down. Okay, I don't like that. I like working with the undos off most of the time because I can just clear the layer. I'm just kind of methodical with it. Right, I'll press D so that we get the variation with this one. Gives us the variation between the two, and that's kind of nice. Right, so Shift C will clear that. And these are the trees in the background, and these are the trees in the foreground, I think. These are foreground. Okay, this is more foreground. The higher you go, the more foreground it is. But you can see I can just start to dot down some. Just hold down X and move a little bit, and I'll do a little bit of X scale range so that we get some variation in that. And the scale's a wee bit too high. But yeah, by the time I'm done with this will look pretty cool. Tiny bit of rotational range will help, and a tiny bit of scatter. A bit more rotational range. You can already see where this is going. It's looking quite wintry, isn't it? If I press 8, I'll get some opacity in there. You could call this the digital oil paint, I think. This tool is really designed for making art the kind of lazy way, but it's not lazy, it's convenient. I mean, I'm by no means lazy in making this, so hopefully you make good art with it. You see, I'm just like interspersing these and changing the scale as I go, and you know, all these hotkeys like holding down S and moving, holding down X and moving, like they're really convenient. Holding down A and moving around, you know, the more you move away from the point where you press the letter, the stronger it gets, is basically what's happening there. Okay, you see this tree in the foreground is really pixely, and it's only because the size that we captured it, but I quite like it like that. It adds a bit of style. So let's paint the snow, and now we've got a layer here. I just need to decide where I want to paint. If this is the foreground and then this is behind, yeah, I'll paint some snow in here. So I'll just go really small. I'll do more scatter, and I'm going to press 3 for a little bit of opacity. Right, you can barely see that, so I'm going to press 6. And the spacing is already quite low, but that'll make me be able to draw more. Okay, that's too much scatter, and that's too much range. Let's do a bit of X scale range, and we can quickly get the ground in and just sneak them in behind these trees. Just try to leave the bits under the trees like a kind of ground shadow or something, or where the snow hasn't really gotten to. I press H to hide the UI, and I'm just purely painting directly in the image, kind of like you would if you were drawing, like you've got that single bit of paper, fixed size. And if you do want to like get all digital art and fancy with your work, use Photoshop or Clip Studio or whatever you use. This is more designed just for getting something quick and easy and fun and really kind of arty farty out there. Right, I just want to add some snow. Let's add some snow. So there's new brushes that I created, which are outline brushes, and this is our snow guy. Now you can see the name down here, outline snowflakes. So all these brushes have names: slab rocks, outline petals. So that's what they're designed for, is for that. Now I'm going to go up here and hide the UI. Let's see what this brush does. Ooh. Okay, we don't want that. So I'm going to choose 2 tones again. Maybe, yeah, that's kind of, let's go for grey. I've seen snow being grey. Now this one's going to mix between the 2 tones. I do want a lot of rotational range. I want a good bit of spacing. X scale range a tiny bit. Scatter definitely. Opacity, and let's see how that goes. Okay, that's pretty good for one layer, but it is a bit big for the opacity, so I think the opacity is too low and the scale is a bit too high, so let's make that smaller. Let's do even more scatter. There we go. So now it's really snowing here, and if I make the size like really small and use ninja brushing, so ninja brushing means the brush will get bigger if I move quickly. So I'm just going to hide everything. I'm going to paint very slowly to get those flakes really kind of smaller. and if I paint quickly I can get some in the foreground. Okay, I'm going to use Z and paint to get rid of some of those, and it helps sort of break up their shape a bit as well. Right, and it's all at random, so I don't know what I'm going to get, but it just eats away some of those. If I go fast it will be a bigger brush. Okay, and now I'm going to go in behind here. I'm going to decrease the spacing so that we get more of them, and scatter wise I've just reduced that a bit. Okay, and I'll hide that again, and I'll just start painting even more because I want loads in the backdrop. Right, I'm going to actually make that spacing much lower so that it doesn't take too long to get the results. Just need to be careful that if I move quickly I'm going to get bigger flakes. Okay, so I've not really done the trees in the background, but this is just all for demo purposes, and it's up to you what you want to add here. So I'm going to add a nice rock. Right, got these rocks, and I'll do Shift S to make sure I'm on stamp mode. Now stamp mode is down here. Shift S says 0, so it's off. And Shift S will switch that on. Now there is going to be switches and buttons and all these good things to make this easier. This is all just like coder stuff. And let's plop this rock in this layer here. It's actually under the snow and there's no way to move these layers, so I'm going to go up to this one. Let me plop some rocks down. Okay, and I just want to add some snow to the rocks, so I'll go to this layer and let's get our little snow brush. That's this one. This is a super handy brush that I use for making the trees and also for putting snow on top. So I'm just going to make that scale wise a bit smaller. No scatter, no X range, Shift S, and then I can place some snow on these rocks here. Hold down X. It's very much like using a fan brush. Heck it, let's start adding snow to some of these trees that don't have any, because every tree needs a bit of snow in its life. Even these backdrop ones, I've just put the opacity right down to kind of match the tone of things being tinted in the distance. And yeah, I can just be kind of willy-nilly with this because I get away with a lot with all this busy stuff happening. Okay, and that big foreground tree, heck it, let's go to a big brush, hold down X, we're really at the size we need. I just need to be careful with this because I don't have any undos and I'm basically risking it to make this look right. So I'm just going to be all natural and careful with this. I say all natural, like I mean careful where I place stuff. Like nature really just does it right. And I see like a little bit of the green breaking through here and there. It's not just crazy, I'm thinking about where I want to place stuff. Oh, I forgot about these trees. Alright, so I'll go back to a layer. I'll go straight on the layer, it doesn't really matter. I just want to dot these in really quickly. and I can change the scale here. I can hold down X and move a little bit just to make that kind of tighter. So if you press X and just don't really move, it's going to be really kind of tight. Okay, and what I want to do is just add a nice backdrop that makes this feel foggy. So I really like this brush for that kind of thing. I'm going to choose a couple of tones here, make sure I'm in this secondary mode where it's going to mix between these two tones. I'm going to press 4 for a little bit of opacity, and this is a nice clean layer. I'm just going to paint some nice kind of misty fog. I'm going to press 2 for a little bit less, and this really helps sort of tie some bits together. Alright, I'll do F. I'll press 1 so I've got a really low opacity. You see when I press, oops, okay, it's interesting. You see when I press 1, the opacity shoots down to these increments, right? 1 to 9 and then 0, just like Photoshop. But if I hold down F for Freddy, it goes into this kind of additive mode, and you can kind of add tones. Now there is something in the foreground having an effect on this, so it might be that sort of ground mist somewhere. I forget where I put it now. Is it here? It's really hard to see. If I hold down F there, nope, maybe this one. Oh, I just like enhanced the snowflakes, but that was quite nice. But these little things are just, they're helping make things look good. Maybe the backdrop, if I move things, I need to be careful. So what I could do is press B, and B is going to bake everything down into this one little layer. Looks like a little postcard. And if I mouse wheel this up, you know, I can paint some things underneath that I might have missed. You know, sometimes you miss stuff, and the only problem is it's baked all the colours including the backdrop, so I can only paint in front of it, but I can paint on it and use F and kind of enhance some bits. Right, so there's a lot of things that need work with this tool, but it's coming along nice, I think. Just adding a little kind of path there. There's also some nice rocks that would do that, this one. And if I hold down X and make them really wide, that will give them a sense of flatness. I just want to choose a couple of tones again. I'll go to the layer above just so I've got some extra control, and plop some of these down. I've got spacing, need to be higher. I've got scatter mode on a bit as well, and stamp mode. If I press P, we'll get into a perspective mode where these actually get bigger as I move closer. And I can stamp some of those down. Now let's just add a little bit of these little white twigs. These always help. I'm just going to make them a bit bigger, and I'm going to press D to go into this mode where it'll work a bit better. Choose a second colour. Dot these down. Some little twigs and branches. And I think we're good. Let's take this one. We're in this mode. I just want to dot some of these down. Let's go for 7, maybe 9. Yeah, in fact 0 is a bit better, because if I alt right click, I'll get a little bit better tonnage with these. Let's just put a clump down. Just like that. And I think that's good. So there's your little postcard. I'm going to save that out, as I do have a little gallery here. I'm going to call this Winter Wonderland, famous Winter Wonderland, and I should put in PNG, but it's automatic. It'll make a PNG, and it will also make a sprite sheet, because just now the software just assumes you're making sprite sheets because it's all testing and alpha and beta stuff. But I'm going to load it in just to show you how it looks as a splitted sprite, and I'm going to choose 16, so it's going to load in the image and split it into 16 sections, and that way you get the idea of where this is going. You can see it's giving me this little subsection of it. I'll press B to break everything down, and I'm just going to work on a layer above here, and I'm going to Bob Ross style, I'm going to ruin this. Whoops, alright, that was already the first boob. Let's press D, so we go here, we're using a single color, and Shift S so that we are not in stamp mode anymore. Don't need ninja brushing. I can reset X scale. I don't need scattering, opacity wise, full size wise, good. And I'll just do H to hide, and I can sort of dot this around. Like you can see, I can almost get different images. The perspective mode is still on, that's why I'm getting different stuff there. And everything went black. Everything went black. Why did everything go black? Oh, it's back again. So you see it split it into like 16, almost like a shredder. And I go back to that same thing. Right click to get rid of it. I'm going to change this to 8. Load in this one this time. And you can see it's actually a bigger section it's gave me. And I can kind of mix this up to eventually look like a new picture. A little bit of opacity and stuff. Let's make that much bigger. Yeah, it's not doing me any favors, is it? So right click it again. Let's go for 4. Load it in again. Now it's a bigger section. Let's just clear that layer. Hide the grids. Right, and you know, you can see it's a bigger section and so on. Okay, so that's basically what these are for splitting up images. So this would be 2 equal parts, left and right. Right, so you can see sometimes I'll get the left side, sometimes I'll get the other side, and if I've got flippy mode on, that is Shift X, it's sometimes going to give me the opposite. Okay, so let's just hide that again and choose 1, and 1 gives me the actual image. Right, this is the actual full image, but it's flipped. Right, I can do Alt X and it will flip the image. So that's one way to flip your image just now, because I don't really have any other way. But you can then press 0, hide that, and plop that in there, and that's you got a flipped version of your scene. Right, and not just that, I could mix them together. If I choose a soft brush, let's just right click this because I don't want it clogging up the space. And I'm going to choose my tree, right? I'm going to choose my magic tree, and on this layer, you see there's 2 layers, and I'm just going to go in the middle and hold down Z and click. And this tree is now blending between, it's basically like getting rid of bits there, right? And I can basically do that and bring back that tree. So I'm using the tree as a kind of an eraser, right? And that's me got a kind of symmetrical looking scene. What else can Blit Paint do? So I'm going to press backspace to clear absolutely everything. We've got our magic tree here. We can go into different modes. We can press G, and we've got pixel mode, right? So I can choose color and make some nice pixel art. And it also goes into stamp mode so that you don't draw loads your memory away, but again, I'm not using any undo memory. Now if you press Shift and A here, it overlays the animation guide for doing a 4-split animation. And I'm just going to show you what happens here. If I click here and I press K, again, this is all going to be buttons. This is the onion skin that you see from this frame. So I click here, and then I'm going to click here, I'm going to click here, and you see what I've made, this little shape. I'm going to do a little tracer. I'm going to press 6, right, so it starts there and makes its way here, so I'm going to click there, click there again, right, and then right, and then you see what I'm doing? Made a little kind of tracer effect. And then if I press Shift and A and make it go backwards, and then Shift and A again, I get a ping pong effect, and then it's kind of off. Alright, so that is 3 modes and off, and you can use, tells you right here, you can use these to make it faster. So you can build up little sprites this way. So I'll do backspace, I'm going to press G, and you see we're in a different grid mode. I'm going to just do Shift S to go into like better drawing. Again, I don't have any undos, so I'm just drawing like a crazy man. Just backspace that. So you need to watch that if you're in this mode and you're using the tablet and you've got size by pressure, yeah, you're going to get this kind of effect, but that might be pretty cool. You might like the way it's kind of snapping to a grid and you get different sizes. You might even want to put ninja brushing on and make it smaller. And you get a nice cool effect, because this grid doesn't stay, you can hide that completely. Yeah, and you're left with this cool looking thing. So you can really make kind of stylized art if you look at it that way. And it's reset the brush, that's the only thing. It's put it back to normal. There's loads of things that could be optional, to be fair, and a lot of things that are not finalized yet. So I'm going to choose yellow. I don't know what I'm making, some sort of fireworks display. Celebrating the fact that Blit Paint is being released. And you can go right out, you don't have to stay in this area. This is just a kind of guide of good proportions for kind of retro stuff. If I don't want the size to change, just put size by pressure right down and everything will be kind of somewhat back to normal, apart from ninja brushing is on, which also makes it change size. So that's it back to normal there. You can bracket right key and it will make it bigger, but it does it to fix the mounts. So that's a cool little feature that I added. It breaks after a while though, it does kind of lose its plot a little bit. But yeah, it's pretty good. Alright, so there's that. Now if I do Shift and A, I can overlay the sprite mode again, like this image, and make even more detailed sprites. So let's use the layers to do some sort of outline. So I'll do like a kind of walk cycle or something. Now press K, I'll see these. Let's do a kind of squat actually. So that's the onion skin mode. It's going to press H to hide the UI. Right, let's just say we've got a wee guy here like this, and then he's kneeling down, and then he's maybe sitting. And it's good because you get these suggestions, like that looks like his arms, so I'm gonna actually use that, like here. Right, I don't actually see it in this one, but I can imagine that they've been like this, and then it'd be like this here. And you see the little animation that started to appear. And I can use that as a guide, right? I can move this layer down with the mouse wheel, Okay. And basically start like drawing in some better looking graphics. But we're not going to do that, we'll get more to show you. So I'll just do backspace to hide all that, G to turn off the grid there, and now we've got isometric mode. Right, so isometric mode gives you the setup of these little isometric tiles, and it also takes you to that isometric brush set, and there's quite a few. So ones that I've made before, of like grass and things. And just be sure that when you're painting, that you always paint from top to bottom to overlap the things at the top, right? A cool thing you can do here is you can press P for perspective mode, and you'll get some funky things happening. You'll actually get these tiles getting bigger as they get closer towards you. Whether you like that kind of thing, I don't know, but that looks kind of cool. Bit tricky to use because it's hard to focus on the size. But yeah, pretty nice to see that effect. And you can hide the grid again, hide the UI, and that's what you're left with. The background doesn't stay, that just means it's opacity, right? That means it's transparent rather. So you can replace that. Okay, so backspace. So that is basically that mode. Press G again, pixel mode, G again, small pixels, G again, even smaller pixels. Right, but for some reason that's quite a big brush. Mouse mode's on. Okay, maybe it's just set at the wrong size. That's another bug I can look at. Yep. Okay, so what else is that? That's really it. Oh yeah, there's also this grid. This is just a guide for different things. Now you can see this has got the 16 split. You can imagine this would be all your sprites, right, of your brushes. Okay, imagine you've got 16 different images in here, all within this area, and I save this, and I'm just going to call this, let's put it in images, and I should say test 16, right? And I go to a new brush, and I change that to 16 and add it in. I'll add in this one actually, and where's test 16, here it is here, but I want to choose the sprite one, right? So I'll click that. You can see I've done a bad job of trying to stay within the lines, but now I've got all my different brushes all loaded within this one. You can see I can sort of use that to build up this little Minecraft looking, I don't know, base or ground. Let's add in our trees as well. Yeah, let's add in this tree and choose a couple of tones here because I just want it to be roughly the right kind of tonage, and plop in some trees. And we need a backdrop, so I'll just do a really fiery backdrop like this. Let's make sure I choose a couple of tones for variation. Look at that silhouette effect. So perspective mode is on, and that just makes things get smaller as they go into the distance, and that's conveniently convenient. That's a new word, isn't it? Conveniently convenient. And as we go into the foreground, I'll choose some lighter tones and even lighter tones, and that helps just separate the foreground with the background. Let's choose a brown there just to see what happens. Let's choose two reds. Really red branch there, that's nice. So that is pretty much what BlitPaint does. If you've got undo mode on, you can store like undo memory and you can play it back as a sequence and all sorts of fancy things like that. It does warn you if you're running out of memory, and if you do run out of memory, it just basically bakes everything down to one layer at the bottom, and yeah, it just resets your memory and things. So it is a bit of a complicated beast. You see where it's picking these and kind of making an animation from it. Yeah, a bit of a complicated beast. And also, Easter egg, there's a magic key. Can you find it? It does this. Makes everything into pixel art. And you can change the scale and ratio and stuff. You can also change the amount of colours. And also like the gamma. And get something that looks like an Amiga game. You can switch it back off as well. You can press nearly every key there is and see what happens. See if I can crash it. Nope. Solid tool. Look at that. Look at all the crazy stuff you can do. And yeah, not managed to crash it. Still pretty good, right? So that is it. I hope you enjoyed this full feature length, movie length, full cinematic length doohickey of Blit Paint, and I'd love to see what you make. If you do make brushes in Blit Paint, you own them. You can do what you want with them, put them in your game. I don't know, just whatever. You can put them in the Discord channel as well. Like, I really want to see what you guys make with this. I'm going to make a speed video of this as well, so that you can get the rundown of what the whole video looks like, and I just want to see what you guys make. I really enjoy making stuff in this, and I made it for me, for you, for anybody that feels that they can use it. It's unique in the way that it draws sprites instead of brushes, and it does a lot of cool stuff. The UI is definitely needing work, because there's no way you want to look at a big wall of text and be like, what does that do? What does that do? What does that do? I'd rather you hover over something, and a little help thing comes up and says, opacity, that changes the opacity of the brush, believe it or not. And instead of pressing G to cycle through grids, that'll be another menu. I might even need some sort of drop down style menu at the top. Move the brushes somewhere else. Yeah. We'll see what I come up with, but it's going to be a bit of a redesign. So far so good though. It's a month in development, and we'll see where it takes us in a year. Thanks for watching this video. I really hope you tune into Blit Paint. You can get it from itch, download it for free. You can donate coffee money if you want, but I'm happy for you to use it and share it around. It will become a paid tool maybe in a couple of months time when it's more solid, if I feel that it's justified, but otherwise it's free to use and abuse, and definitely share your work. Thanks for watching. Bye.